No, hello everybody, and welcome to a special edition of the MrWarrenHayes Show. Of course, I'm Mr. Warren Hayes, and it is special because it is the official kickoff of the G1 34 Climax here on the podcast, at the very least, because it's G1 season, baby. It is the greatest tournament in sports happening over there in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and we're kicking it off. We're talking about it. We're gonna break things down leading into the tournament, leading into my daily coverage. And I'm not doing it alone. I've been saying we, but I'm not like talking in the third person here. It's not something on that effect. No, I am thrilled today to be joined by none other than Mr. SportOfProWrestling.com himself. You've heard his name be thrown around tons of times on New Japan World English commentary. It is Chris Samsa joining me. Hello, Chris, and welcome to the show.
Hello, and thank you for having me. This serves as the official kickoff to my true G1 season also. So this is the first bit of content, bit of audio, anything outside of Twitter/X that I have done in relation to the G1 Climax. So, my apologies if I'm not as uber prepared as I normally am, but I do have screens and screens of documents already open and ready to chat through. But yeah, I am thrilled that it is G1 season, and I am back for my, I guess, 6th official G1, doing whatever it is I do with numbers, statistics, history, and information for the English broadcast team. And I know I speak for, I think, the whole group when I say that we are thrilled that the G1 is here and it is structured the way that it is structured this year. So I'm stoked to talk to anyone who will listen about it. So thank you so much for having me.
I'll listen, Chris. Yeah, I'm super excited. And just in case, and you did a really great preamble, because I think, spoiler alert, I know I'm excited, and you said it yourself, you're excited. So, there's going to be a lot of excitement, I think, in this breakdown here. And you mentioned it. I sort of alluded to it. You just went right to it. You do a lot of work with the English commentary team over in New Japan. Why don't you take a minute just like to plug yourself? Make sure that people know what the hell Chris Samsa does.
Well, I'm a dynamic individual, so this may take a while. No, in the pro wrestling world, I put together stats and info packets, many pages of statistics and history and information, all tying to, singular events. So for every event, for every G1 show, I will pull together a collection of statistics and provide a little bit of context on those statistics for the English broadcast team, as well as kind of the general public fan base at large. And I also, I'm keen to keep an eye out for unique happenings, specifically in the New Japan space, but also in the pro wrestling space at large. Anything that is factual and unique, I'm likely to put out there and make sure that those things get highlighted, because my whole approach is to highlight what is real in professional wrestling, a world of a carnival world of fake outs and falsehoods. I like to highlight some of the real athletic accomplishments that are happening, as well as kind of highlight some of the booking patterns on the sort of kayfabe side of things. So yeah, and I've been doing that since 2019. The G1 2019 is when I really started to do this with the English broadcast team of Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton and Rocky Romero at the time, and now that has transitioned to Walker Stewart and Chris Charlton. And then I dipped my toe in other places around the pro wrestling internet, and I'm gonna dive in within the next little bit. I've got some projects, some irons on the fire to dive in a little bit deeper across the larger pro wrestling landscape. But right now, all still New Japan, still in my New Japan gear.
It's so cool. That's such a great track jacket, let's be honest.
It's the only gift I ever get from New Japan, so I'll take the annual tracksuit send off. I have what I call a tracksuit fairy that hooks me up every year. It's literally the only payment I've ever gotten from them. It's the only thing anyone there has ever given me, and you know what? I'm couldn't be more pleased with that.
Yeah, because next thing you know, you'll be getting Rivera jackets, right? Without ever even having showed up, right? That'll be the next thing.
I could probably coordinate that, and probably should, but I think that's the kind of thing you have to earn.
Yeah, you kind of have to earn it. Yeah,
like you gotta go. Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like I do earn the track jacket, but I think I'd have to hold off on the Ribera. And you got to pick your own color, and it's just such a thing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and everything you do, like well, at least when it comes to all these stats, it's sportivprowrestling.com, which I think you've been promising to revamp for the past 3 years or something like that.
It comes and goes. We are hardcore into the revamp now, though.
Okay,
we
good.
we know what we're doing with it. We should see it. Well, we'll see a version of it with the launch of our G1 contest that is coming up soon. So it'll be g1.sportofprowrestling.com, and that'll give people a little peek under the hood of what's to come at sportofprowrestling.com. So, and that's launching later today, I think.
Oh well,
so we're pretty excited. Yeah.
By the time this gets out, I do believe your contest, your pick'em will be out there. So people should go check it out at sportivprowrestling.com. And if they want to follow you on social media, what's the best spots?
Yes, at the Chris Samsa. The needs to be very prominent in that. At the Chris Samsa on Twitter. That's pretty much it. I don't really live in any other. And you can find me on various Discords lurking. And if you ever needed to send me a message, you could on a Discord. But I don't often post in public forums outside of Twitter, which is always a mistake, but sometimes it's a good time.
Twitter is what it is. You make
yes. You just have to know what you're getting into.
As long as you're super conscious about that, that's really the best you can do.
Well, that's how I got here. That's how I started to do this. Is I was like, I don't want to share my opinion in this world. Like, I love pro wrestling. I want to contribute to this community, but I want to somehow stick to facts. And it turned into this, which is kind of cool.
Which is very cool. Let's be honest.
So I have Twitter to thank for finding this lane. So super thankful to the previous owners of Twitter, who also allowed it to become a cesspool. So whatever.
We like to think it's one man's fault, but like many things, it's a team effort. Kind of like the WCW dying, right? It's a team effort.
Well, you could point pretty heavily to one person there, but we cannot go that far into that.
not today, because we've got we've got a lot to get into here in regards to the G1, which starts on July 20th in just a few days, actually. So we're really into it. So let's break it down from a very, very high level, bit by bit. We'll just go down some topics, throw some things out there. We'll see how it goes. First of all, I think the first thing of note that we have to talk about, Chris, is that we're back to a field of 20 split into 2 blocks. Over the past couple of years, New Japan tried toying around with the idea of 4 blocks and a bunch of guys, lots of guests coming in as well from other promotions, and did what it did. I, for one, I'll tell you, I got really gung-ho about the 2-field G1 this year after Best of Super Juniors. Because after the tournament this year, I was like, man, maybe Best of Super Juniors wasn't the greatest edition that they've had, but it just makes everything so easy to follow. It keeps a focus on your storylines. It keeps a better focus on your storylines, because you don't have to book over 4 groups with 20 odd, 30 odd people.
And really, 2 of those groups are all on the same night all the time also, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So I was really excited to come back. So after Best of Super Juniors, I was like, they have to come back to this for the G1. We just can't do another G1 with 4 blocks and so on and so forth. How do you feel about the returning to form here in a certain way?
I like it. I like it. I think I said that with a tone where I was gonna say, but
yeah, you did.
I like it. But I didn't hate the 4. I'd never hate trying something. And I always, and I always say it in other aspects of my life, you can't say something doesn't work until you try it. Mm-hmm. Right? So we know now that the 4-block thing doesn't really work. It was okay. Last year was okay. It was better than the year prior, where they had an uneven number of people in each block, which blew my mind. And I was never able to uncover why that was the path they took. And then you had this mixed bag of guys had like 2 weeks off, and then, guys that were wrestling 3 days in a row. And it was just so
I
weird
forgot
in
about that.
2022.
Wasn't it like El Fantasmo who had like a month off? And
he had like he wrestled like 4 matches right at the beginning, or it was something like that. One of the guys wrestled like
Something to
3 or
that
4
effect.
matches right at the beginning of the tournament, had a ton of time off. Tom Lawler didn't wrestle his first match of the tournament until like 2 weeks in.
That's true.
It was a mess. And then he had to wrestle a bunch towards the end, and it gave me a lot to work with, because I was like, well, this guy hasn't wrestled in X amount of days. It helps us add to the story, but that's not a thing. That's not something you should be adding to the story. And there's no way they did that with any intention of there being a storyline around it. And then last year, still 4 blocks. 2 blocks were really attached to each other. And then each event was really just the 2 block nights with a bunch of G1 matches. And now we're back to 2 blocks of 10. Essentially most shows, 5 matches a show. We've got 2 big shows right at the beginning of the tournament with 10 matches on each. And then into a knockout stage, which is sort of a new development for the 20-person G1. So now we've got a knockout stage where 3 guys from each block will go through. The winner gets a bye right into that kind of block final. And then the other 2 will have to wrestle on the night prior. And I am pro knockout stage after the block tournament. And I actually really like this particular structure, with the winner still mattering, still goes through and gets a break. And we always talk about how grueling the G1 is. So let's give that person, a break where they have to wrestle 1 fewer match, right? Obviously in all sports, everyone's always trying to earn that first round bye in a lot of these sports. So very similar to that. And then the other 2 guys have to wrestle. They'll go through. I think it'll add stories to, in retrospect, when you go back and look at what happened in the block once these guys are through. I think it'll add some storyline, some story plot points. What I saw a little bit was people complaining that there were going to be rematches. I'm also not anti-rematch. It's okay to wrestle twice. I'm a baseball fan. Whenever my team plays against somebody else, they play against them like 3 times. I don't complain that these are rematches. It's part of it, and the story can build throughout the course of a weekend, or in this case, over the course of a tournament. So I love it. And then it'll go through to a true block final that's established by the tournament, so you don't have to do so much block math necessarily, which is, again, part of what I do, and I will do it to figure out those first through third. But you can wait until the knockout stage, see who goes through, get really engaged again in that stage, and then it's really crisp and clear as to who goes forward through that. So I love the structure of this year's tournament. I actually think it's an enhancement over just block winner goes through. And I know that may be a hot take. I'm not sure. People have various feelings about it.
I'm absolutely with you. I myself didn't necessarily hate the 4 block structures that they pulled out. Like you said, there was that one year where the first year where the execution was very off because of the scheduling, which was really weird.
Nothing made sense.
No, it really didn't. And as someone who did daily G1 coverage, it was really hard. Like it was
hard.
Yeah, it was difficult to like sit down and like, okay, this is how I see things how things are going to develop. No, we've got, like you said, Tom Lawler is going to be wrestling like he's
in the tournament. Yeah.
It's like
great.
And he's far behind, but he's 4 matches behind because he hasn't wrestled, and everyone else, whatever.
Yeah.
So and I love the playoffs. I liked the playoffs last year. I thought they were really good last year. I thought it had a lot, and I like this idea as well. I love at least in this little biosphere that you and I have right now. It's not a hot take.
Okay.
I'm completely with you. I think it's really interesting, and especially if we consider how the play-in was handled.
Oh,
I think.
Sure.
But we'll get to that. We'll get to that in a bit. We'll get to that in a second. I want to break down just a little bit more the field of 20 that we have here. We only have 2 outsiders that are joining the G1 this year. Jake Lee from Pro Wrestling Noah, although he's been around New Japan quite a bit recently, so he feels right at home. And Kenosuke Takeshita, representing both DDT and AEW. tell me how you feel about old Jake Lee and Konosuke Takeshita joining us.
I don't have many feelings about Jake Lee.
Neither do I.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's to say? He exists. He is the Noah representative. And we know that New Japan and Noah have had they've had some, we had Kaito Kiyomiya in last year's G1, which I think was a great addition. So now we've got Jake Lee, who's kind of their new, I guess, pushed entity, and he has he's built up a little bit of history specifically with Tetsuya Naito, which I think is clearly where we're headed here. They're in the same block. We'll get there, right? So there's something happening there. And then Takeshita, big get, right? I mean,
sure, big
Japanese star, right? Also working with DDT, which is a company that New Japan used to work a lot with, especially in the Kota Ibushi days. And then kind of has fallen out of favor with. They just don't have much interaction anymore. And now, we see Takeshita coming through clearly through the AEW channel, but I would imagine, I know they had to adjust the schedule so Takeshita can be on Peter Pan. So they clearly have had to work with DDT, to get him and make him available. And he is a rising star in pro wrestling. I mean, he's an incredible wrestler, and he's made a lot of fans with AEW. When I found out he was in the tournament, I sent someone a text. I was like, oh, we're gonna have some people are gonna pay attention to this because they want to see these Takeshita matches. And he's also in an interesting block with some of the younger New Japan guys that are around the same age, around the same experience, that, it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. So great, one really great get and one expected, right? I mean, Jake Lee he's a guy who works for Noah. So you had to figure that since they're not totally in bed with WWE yet, we're still going to see some of that Noah overlap, and Noah still has Ryohei Oiwa hanging out over there. So there's still some relationship there, and I don't see that ending abruptly, at least. So I think they're gonna finish out whatever they're doing here. So,
I think so too.
Nice additions. I like limiting the additions because it says to me you have to be a top-ish guy to get into the G1, and I think that's about where these guys live, right? Takeshita and Jake Lee, they're up there. They're top-ish.
One guy more than the other, I'd say, but
featured act. They're featured act.
Featured acts. How about
featured act?
That's good. That's a terminology that works for me. Yeah. I think the fact that it's just too. I usually you do see these comments, right? Oh, there's not many people from other promotions coming in, and the same thing. And I agree. I think there's two good logical reasons that you can apply here as to why only two people came in. Like you said, well, you want tippy top guys, whatever you think of Jake Lee, nonetheless, a top Noah guy coming in. So, regardless, that's still a thing. Konosuke Takeshita, international star at this point. That's good. And so I agree, like limit the field of people coming in on that level, but also then you're really focused on your own roster, right? Because we're not expecting Konosuke Takeshita to main event the Tokyo Dome in January. It would be a spectacular turn of events.
Wouldn't rule it all the way out. I mean, in January 5th.
I know.
Right, there's something there, right? I mean, we can tie all that together. Yeah. So
for the Wrestle Wrestling Dynasty show, absolutely, there's something there.
Yeah, but on 1/4, it's going to be a New Japan guy.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a New Japan guy. And so the second reason why it makes sense that there's so little guys is because like I said, right, you want to focus on your roster, and especially this year where you really do feel that there's a rejuvenation happening, something that a lot of fans have been thought was going to be last year, but really didn't quite turn out that way.
Really thought we had it last year.
We really thought that we were all fantasy booking Shota Umino and Yota Tsuji, destroying the field, but that was a far cry from what happened. It feels like we're going down this path, right? The president sat down a few weeks ago, had a little 6-month review with his bosses, and he said, look, I've got a 10-point plan. And one of those points was, we got to work with the young guys. We got to put these guys in proper positions. We got to make sure that we put this talent forward as opposed to, you know, just hanging around the same old, right? So, you know, I think, and I don't know how you feel about it, but I think this is this is the thing that really makes the G1 exciting this year. Is that it does feel like we're going to be working. We're going to be seeing the young guys take a lot of spots, become part of the conversation. Really, as opposed to they were always part of the conversation, but the conversation for the past year was like, why aren't they doing more with the young guys? Now It's like, I feel the opposite is going to happen. I feel that there's a rejuvenation going on. I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the play-in, right, has everyone really excited for kind of the youth movement, right? So we've got Oleg Bolton and Callum Newman going through the play-in, beating some of the old guys, you know, taking Tanahashi out, taking Ishii out, taking Yoshihashi out, right? However you feel about the bag of socks, he's still, you know, a fixture in New Japan. Took out some of those fixtures, right? Some of those guys that have essentially aged out of this tournament, and without a pandemic, probably would have aged out of this tournament a couple years ago when you could have made something out of it. Now, at this point, they've aged out of it, you know, not because they wanted to, but because they sort of had to. So now we've got what I call a big turnover G1. And the last time we did this was 2019, when we had like 8 or 9 new guys in the tournament. Maybe it's not that many, but either way, there was a bunch of new guys in 2019. And most of the time, guys stick in the G1. They'll hang around until they basically either leave the promotion or age out. And no one was doing either of those things until everyone did all of those things, right? So like Okada left, Ospreay left, Ibushi left. You know, something like only 2 of the last 10 or 11 G1 winners are still signed with New Japan, and it's Naito and Tanahashi. So, because otherwise you've got Okada, Ibushi, you know, some of those other guys. So like, we've got this big turnover G1, and mind you, like, some of these guys are in their second G1, but it really feels like their first proper opportunity to show what they can do with 9 block matches in this tournament. So, and that's like Tsuji and Uemura, who's actually in his first G1. You got Umino in there. You got Narita still establishing himself. You know, Oleg. You've got Callum Newman. Gabe Kidd's still young. I mean, there is so many young guys. You know, I've got a stat for everyone, right? Of course, like, this will be the 5th youngest G1 in history.
Cool.
Okay. At an average age of 32.78. It is the youngest G1 since 2003, when the average age was also around 32. And, you know, in 2021, so I guess really the second pandemic G1, the average age was 38 and a half. So we have dropped 6 years off the average age of G1 participants in just, you know, 3 years. So, and that's huge. That's huge movement.
That's huge news, and also news that will be really easy to clip afterwards too.
Totally.
But honestly, like, that's an incredible stat. And well, I mean, look, you said it yourself. You know, is it as many people as when, you know, 9 new people dropped into the tournament? I don't know. Probably not. But the fact that, I think it feels huge, and I think it feels comparable because of the tenure of the people who have been kicked out of the tournament, essentially, right? Yeah. I think that makes it significant, right? Hiroshi Tanahashi was like, he's 21, 22 consecutive.
He had been in the tournament since 2002 without missing one.
That's nuts.
It's 2024. Like, why? I mean, I know why. He's the guy. He's the ace. He's been the ace forever. But holy cow, like, that's a long time. The iPod didn't exist the last time. The iPod literally didn't exist the last time Tanahashi was not in the G1 in 2001. The iPod, it has come and gone. Like, it is obsolete now again.
You also could have used the Zune as an example, and probably that would
sure.
But you know,
that came and went. You know,
maybe
a lot faster than the iPod.
Yeah. So he's gone. Tomohiro Ishii, I think, is one that a lot of people are disappointed because
of course,
he's been so reliable, and he's been, how many G1s concluded, and we all sat around saying, well, he was the MVP, right? Like,
most, like
exactly
from 13 till now when he's been in the tournament. Even in 2013, you go back and watch the tournament, you're like, yeah, he's kind of the guy. But he didn't ever factor really in he would factor in the last day, of course, to eliminate guys like Jay White and, have some sort of lane to do something special. But he was never a guy that you thought was going to go through. But damn, did he wrestle, and we will miss that. My understanding with Ishii is that he can go once every couple of weeks and doing 9 matches at Ishii's level. I don't think he's banged up. And I do think it gives them something in the back pocket to say next year after, Ishii's last G1, or Ishii's back in the G1, something like that, right? Because I think he's a candidate for a bounce back. But I love that guys can maybe do that as they get older, and they can dip their toe in and out and see if they can draw or bring something to the table. So, but huge turnover, huge youth movement. I couldn't be more thrilled with the field. I think it's so interesting. There's no one on this list of 20 guys that I think, I'm going to skip most of those matches, And
there's no nights off, right? There's no nights off. The people that we would usually associate with the night off, Yano, Chase, Kenta, to a degree,
new Kenta.
Yujiro.
Chase
wasn't.
Chase is a high effort guy.
I retract that. I retract that.
Everyone likes to dump on Chase, but he gives you a full match, right?
I agree. But Yujiro, at this point,
any of the shenanigan guys, right? They're, I called Kenta Evil Yano last year. Like, I was like, we've got the Evil Yano match, because he's just like Bullet Club Yano doing Bullet Club Yano things. And like, I am a Kenta fan. I have been my whole pro wrestling life, but I don't know, at some point it's time to go. But let me I have a tangent about the night off thing.
Okay, go ahead.
I love when I posted, like, this is the first G1 since whatever year that Toru Yano won't be in the G1, right? I got so many replies that were like, well, we all know Yano's in there to be the night off, and that's a good thing. I was like, for what? For who? Like, why is that a good thing? No. Like, why wouldn't, as a fan, why don't I want better output? Why do I care? It's a grueling tournament. That's the point. Like, let it be grueling. Don't kayfabe me on why someone's in there. Like, give me the guys who might win. Like,
and plus, he's a night off for only one block, for only 9 other guys.
Which meant, though, you needed Fale or whoever else in the other block.
The other block.
The other block needs the night. Blah 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 blah. No nights off. Grow up. Get with it. Stick with it. And maybe if that's what aged out some of these guys, so be it. It's time to go. It's okay. It's okay to age out of things.
I'm completely with you. And even the guys where you're like, where that in the past, like Yujiro, for instance, we're like, oh, well, we need guys to take an L. We can have Callum Newman in this tournament this year taking L's.
Totally.
But Callum is going to work his ass off despite the L's. And that's kind of what you want. You just want guys to give maximum effort. Yeah, exactly. Instead of having Yujiro, who's just going to, saunter around, do a couple of things, and then take a couple of bumps and lose. You just
something with a whiskey or whatever. Yeah, or whatever he's doing these days with his scythe or whatever he's carrying around. He's still got Evil in there for the shenanigans. There's still going to be, it's still pro wrestling.
Yes.
That's that's sometimes how I like to explain, like, what New Japan is. It's like, it's still pro wrestling, but at its peak, it's the most pomp and circumstance kind of hoity-toity version of pro wrestling, whatever that means to you or my father, but we don't have to go there. I
would love to know what your father thinks about
he thinks what I do is really cool.
Oh, good. Okay.
So
that's very good, actually.
My role, very neat. He's not watching the shows. I'll tell you that much. He took me to a bunch of shows back in the early 2000s, though. My father has seen ECW live, so to
Look
his
at
credit.
that. Did Axel Rotten bleed on him or something?
There was a lot of blood. It was a big show.
Okay, good.
So there was a lot happening, but I think he had a good time. He's got memories.
Good. You go with your kids. It's always different.
Yeah, I'll learn.
There you go. So we talked about all these people being out. This is mostly due to the play-ins, which I completely adored, and I think it's one of the reasons why it's one of these things that are making people excited for the G1, because we're actively seeing the New Japan booking decisions of, we are getting rid of the old guard and we're tossing in these two new guys, right? We're tossing these people in essentially. And I think that's exciting. I think it's exciting that we were a part of that, to see it, to experience it. And it just creates hype. It's so easy, Chris.
It's so easy. We know. We talk.
It's so easy.
We talk. We all sit in various group chats and say, why don't they just do this?
Yeah, exactly.
And then they do it. And you point at it and you're like, yeah, we knew. Like,
there you
that's
go.
Pretty much, that's where I think we're all at right now. We're like, yeah, this is all you needed to do to get us excited again. I listened to JCast for the first time in a little while the other day. Damon's excited.
Damon's excited. Damon's excited.
Been so out on, I don't know, not a happy man when it comes to the product, and he is excited. And
listen,
I couldn't be more happy about that.
If Damon is excited for New Japan, they are absolutely doing something right now.
We're
honestly,
back.
We are back. Can I get your feel on Taichi being out? I know that's a bit of a point of contention.
Yeah, he was. I had him on the bubble. You can go back to my Slack messages. I had him on the bubble from day one, before even they announced who was in the play-in, just because he's sort of feels absent this year, unpushed, unfeatured. So I was, I sort of expected to see him in the play-in once they announced that the play-in was happening, and then from there, I really wasn't sure. He was one of those guys where I thought could go through. And that could be the way of heating him back up and getting him back into the fold, right? There's always a chance he's just a little banged up or had needed some time for whatever various reasons, right? He's been a really active wrestler for New Japan since really 2019, when he was, had entered the G1 and was was all over the place starting then and on. He was sort of a pushed entity. He's the person who would always give me one of my top 3 or 4 matches of the G1, like one of those really smart, thoughtful, well laid out matches in the G1. Often with a wrestler you would sort of expect that from: Okada, Ospreay, Ibushi, Naito, etc. But I'm gonna miss that. I'm gonna miss that special Taichi moment in the G1. Because what Taichi is best at, and has always been best at, I think, is making the person across the ring look awesome.
Yeah.
And when you got him in there with some of those best of the best, and then they gave a little extra because Taichi is a well-liked person in the New Japan locker room. They would give Taichi a little extra, or if it was Taichi's hometown and he had the special, if they're up in Sapporo, like, you could get some really awesome stuff out of Taichi. So I will miss him. He's probably the one that hurts the most.
I think so.
But you have to cut it off somewhere, right? And that's the thing. That's the whole thing, is like, even in the world of real sports, like right now, everyone makes the playoffs. I grew up with the baseball world where the winner of the American League East and West played each other. You had two chances to go through, and really one in your division, and then you go on to the World Series, and that's it. And now you've got, I don't know, half the leagues in the playoffs, which is cool. But I'm not buying the White Sox I'm in the playoffs hat when you won the wild card and you lost one game. Like, I'm not gonna do it. So sorry. No, but... And I'm definitely not doing that this year, because they may be the worst team ever.
There you go. Please feed me on the baseball talk. I'm absolutely not up to date, but it's good to know that if I have a team that I need to meme on, it's the White Sox. That's good.
Absolutely, please do. We'll all take it. Me, Craich, K-Slow, we can take it.
Fantastic. Okay. I mean, you have the Cubs, right? So you're. Okay. The Cubs never go out of style. That's the one thing. Like, you can be completely disconnected. You can be completely disconnected from the sport, but you can always rely on a good Chicago Cubs joke. But yeah, like I'm with you with Tai Chi, and I was kind of not expecting, but I was like, there would be a solid argument to make in keeping him in the tournament and him filling up Ishii's spot, where it's the guy that, he's not going to make it, but it's going to be maximum effort every match. And like you said, he's going to pull out one, maybe two matches throughout the tournament that are just going to be like at the top of your list. They're going to be in your top 5. And it's just going to make you happy. He's a fan favorite. People like him, and there's multiple good reasons, but there's multiple good reasons to have Bolton Oleg in here because the guy's special. I am not surprised he won. You were talking about Tai Chi being downcycled. I was like, look at how they've been pushing Oleg.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Like in this, in the trios matches that he's been having with the guy, he's the guy putting in most of the effort. He's the guy doing the most of the work. He's the guy getting the pinfalls, like establishing his finisher
very frequently. Yeah.
So I'm like, they're not doing this, they're not doing this by mistake.
It's almost like they knew.
It's almost as if this was planned out, like
it's almost like they booked this.
It's as if it's fixed.
Gosh.
Tetsuya Naito fighting Callum Newman in a special singles match, and Naito giving quite a bit to Newman in the match. I'm like, come on, all right,
on Dominion, no less. I mean, that's a real show, yeah.
So at the very least, my Spidey sense is tingling, right? Without coming out saying, "Oh, this is what's going to happen." At the very least, I think I see some things here. So I mean, look, this is the field that we end up with. Let's get into the block specifically here. We'll start with Block A? How about that? Alphabetical order, just crazy like that. Just as a refresher for everyone, this is the block that contains Tetsuya Naito, Shota Umino, Sanada, Shingo Takagi, Great Okan, Zack Sabre Jr., Evil, Gabe Kidd, Jake Lee from Pro Wrestling Noah, and Caleb Newman. This is the stacked block, right? I think I'll give you I'll give you the floor here, Chris. Why don't you lead us in here with your thoughts on Block A?
Yeah, this is definitely the block with the most established kind of G1 guys, right?
Right.
You got Naito, Sanada, Evil, Zack Sabre Jr., and Shingo that are all really mainstays in the G1 tournament and have been factors at various degrees in the result of the tournament, right? All sort of at least generally pushed entities. Sanada spent all last year as the world champion of the promotion, lest we all forget. And maybe by choice. Tetsuya Naito, obviously the biggest star New Japan has right now, and the champion of the promotion once again after beating Jon Moxley at Forbidden Door. So we've got, anytime you've got the champion in a block, you're gonna get one match a night at least where everyone gives full effort, because the whole thing about it is if you got the champion across from you and you got a chance to beat the champion, we all know the score there. You beat the champion, you probably get a title shot later in the year. And we don't have anyone in this block that wouldn't then try to pick up on that title shot, I don't think, right? Previously, we've had guys like Yano or Bad Luck Fale, things like, or Chase, guys that can get these fluke wins. Everyone sort of knows they're a little banana peely and they're not going to take that Ryogoku title shot. This block doesn't really have that. If anyone beats Naito, you can expect to see a title shot by the end of the year. I would imagine. I would be very surprised if any of these guys beat Naito and didn't have that sort of follow-up.
Sure.
Obviously, maybe not obviously. To me, it's obvious that Jake Lee is a candidate for that.
I think so too.
As the outsider who's already taken one loss to Naito at the United Japan show, you got to figure that win. He gets that win back, maybe. And
it's a great spot to do it too. Like in the G1, totally. The title's not on the line. It's just, it's a very easy singles win to get back. I completely agree.
And then maybe they set it up and do it again at Ryogoku or Power Struggle or, one of the bigger shows in the fall. And that draws in some Noah interest, right? And I think that's a little bit of that. It works both ways, right? New Japan wants to get some of those Noah eyes on their product too. It's not... New Japan's not like the big bad in Japan the same way that some companies are in the. I'm not going to claim a company. Some companies are in the United States or in North America. It's not really totally that way. They do take their booking of those events quite seriously, but we saw it with Kato Kiyomiya last year too. He was a featured act throughout the whole G1. So I mean, maybe the wins and losses didn't kind of come together for him, but he was still very featured in the block that he was in, and he turned out to do a good job. So, but I think in the A block, the guys that I have my eyes on, Zack Sabre Jr., of course. Sure. I think a front runner to at least maybe crack a finals this year. Shingo, I think maybe Shingo's falling into the Ishii lane where great guy, great wrestler, gonna factor, can beat anyone. Has Tetsuya Naito on night one, that's gonna be awesome.
Which is gonna rock.
It's gonna rock. So, and then I think, Shingo featured act, really big guy. He, definitely a playoff contender. And then you've got guys like Gabe Kidd who've made a name for themselves in various ways. But he has definitely made a name for himself. And I don't, I don't pay that much attention to Noah either, here and there. But I could imagine Kidd and Lee building a program for Noah because Gabe has shown a clear willingness to go over to Noah. So there's a lot of those little interactions. Naito and Umino have a lot of history. You've got Callum Newman. Again, you kind of highlighted that his history is largely with Naito. But also, I just love that a guy like Newman's in this tournament, a guy that no one's really seen much of. I mean, he's 21-ish years old. I mean, he's the second youngest competitor in G1 history behind La Sombra, also known as Andrade, back in the day. So, I mean, that's quite the feat. And again, you haven't really seen much of him, so you want to see more. You want to get to know this wrestler that is in this huge spot. And because it's not a bunch of wrestlers, especially in this block, that are kind of fresh and new to this situation, he's going to be highlighted. And I think he's going to take what he can get out of all these really established wrestlers. And I think it's humongous for him. It's a humongous opportunity. He could go 0-9, and it's still the best thing that he could possibly do. And he might. I don't, I don't rule it out. I don't rule it out, but damn it, he'll go 0-9 and look good doing it. And I'm in on that type of stuff too, because then next year he goes, 3-6. So you build. Exactly. You got to build it.
We're going long term here, and that's absolutely fine. Maybe he'll go 21 consecutive G1s. Then he might.
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
He'd only be 40 by the end of it.
There you go. In the prime.
That's pretty good.
In the prime. Yeah. So you don't see this as the big Sonata comeback trail, the big return to.
He again, same deal. Hasn't really. I mean, he was in the global title match. I know he had a injury. Tough to gauge how they're feeling about Sonata after the title reign, and then the title defense. Naito defended against him. That was when I was like, we're really just still gonna keep doing this, huh? Yeah. And now we fixed it. We figured it out. Tanahashi spoke up in the room, I think, and things started to happen. But no, I do think Sonata's a factor. There's a bunch of guys that I think are in it until the end. Most of this block could be a factor on that last night.
I agree. And I look, you're not going to completely toss aside a former IWGP World Heavyweight Champion,
a recent for that matter,
a recent one, and who held the belt for a significant amount of time. Not a flash in the pan like that Moxley guy.
Only losing in America.
Yeah, come on now. So to me, I think he's going to be a factor, but I don't see him really.
I think Sonata regresses back to where he had been in the G1, which
is fine.
Featured, a factor. I mean, he's 36-32 all time in the G1, so that tells you about where he lives, right? He lives at just above 500. Maybe he peaks up and snags himself 10 to 12 points this year, and with 12 points. I think 12 points, you probably go into the playoff round this year.
There you go.
So 12 points, I don't think wins the block. But now that we've got this playoff situation, Sonata could be number 3 that goes through. And would take no issue to that. I think he's a good wrestler.
Good.
And he's a good-looking man.
Oh, I mean, if he could wrestle in his suit, I think that would be...
and the sunglasses, the whole shot, yeah.
It'd be tremendous.
Yeah.
I have a feeling, and it's in the pit of my gut for a while. I have a feeling that Zack Sabre Jr. is going to go not only win Block A, I think he's going all the way.
You think he's winning the tournament?
I think at the very least it's his to lose, right?
Sure.
I think he's in a position where him being a top guy will still feel fresh, even if he's not a strapping young lad anymore. But I think it will feel fresh if he's at the top. I think if you're putting him to main event the Tokyo Dome against Naito in January, I think that works. I think that's yeah.
That's one of the matches that we've seen it, right? We've seen a lot of Zack and Naito,
and it works. And it works. And to be honest, especially if you look at how, I know there's a whole argument in regards to Naito being washed or not. He's a vibes wrestler, so on and so forth. But we just have to be down to the brass tacks. Naito can't go like he used to. Like, regardless of how you feel about him, he really just can't. He's not completely washed. I don't think that. But man, he's not the guy he used to be. You get a guy like Zack in there who will work to that, right? He'll accentuate the positives, hide the negatives. He's that kind of wrestler, and create a super compelling story for Naito, who then won't feel like he has to, end the match with the Stardust Press, for instance, or have someone carrying him over his head because he can't lift himself off to do a Destino, right?
Sure.
I think there's a lot of it. And I think, I cannot remove myself from thinking that Zack lost Upward when he dropped the New Japan World TV title, got it back from Matt Riddle, but we know what that was all about.
We know, yeah.
We know what that was about. And got it, but I can't feel like he lost Upward on that one. And I still believe in it. He won his match with Orange Cassidy at Forbidden Door, one of the not many New Japan guys won their matches. I think it was one of those, just those two, right? It was Naito and him, if I'm not just off the top of my head.
Maybe one of the tags, but I don't. Nothing meaningful.
Nothing meaningful. So and I said it myself when I reviewed the show, and when I did the instant reaction with Rich over on the Patreon, I said, just because Zack Sabre Jr. won, I think he's winning the G1. I think because if they didn't have plans for him, I think they would have Orange Cassidy beat him. That's fine.
Well, and Zack is a guy whom we know AEW likes also. We know Danielson is a big fan, and we know that it's pretty well known that Danielson's got a lot of pull over there. And I think if Zack wanted to jump, he would have a wide open door.
He'd have a nice landing spot, absolutely.
But Zack, maybe some don't know, Zack lives in Japan and seems, even in the post-show, and the press conference, he spoke so highly of his the freedom that he has in the world that he kind of has created in pro wrestling. So with that said, usually the foreign wrestlers in New Japan, very often they are evil, right? Not Evil the wrestler, but Evil Jay White, right?
Yeah.
They're heels. They're big old heels. And Zack kind of lives in a little more of an in-between space, which to me is the space that used to be occupied by one Will Ospreay. Very unique in the ring, so unique that fans can't stand to not love him, right? But then also kind of dastardly, win at any cost, do anything. And, Zack more mat-based, do anything, but as opposed to Ospreay, maybe more in the air. But he's the clear candidate for the kind of big, bad foreigner that might live a little more in the middle because people like him, and the kind of ramshackle group that are around him with TMDK. Like, who doesn't love Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols being dopes, just running around like they're in Jackass, Exactly. So they're I guess heel-leaning tweeners is the industry term. But Zack is a main eventer. I mean,
Yeah.
he can main event any building in the world, and I think it would be a test to put him in the Tokyo Dome for sure. But if you're gonna do it, it's probably got to be with Naito.
Yeah. No, it absolutely has to.
So I mean, that's the perfect match. So I'm with you. I think I haven't officially declared who I think will win the tournament, but Zach is absolutely on my very, very short list.
Yeah, he's on my. He's at the very least he's on my short list, but I have him going forward. And to your point, as far as Zach goes, on top of that, like, yeah, he's also maybe not as okay. I want to say too many things at once. I think he's shown that he is very respectful of Japanese culture.
Sure.
Not to the degree that Kenny Omega did it, because Kenny Omega was going full babyface and really leaned into that. But, he speaks fluently, like you said, talks about him living there. And I think that's stuff that the audience has picked up on, right? I think it's naturally endearing for the audience as well. So, like you said, dastardly heel-leaning tweener, sure, but I think there's a lot of reasons for fans to even latch on to Zach and be like, yeah, we like this guy because, he's come from somewhere else, but he's embraced our culture. He's embraced our how things are done here, the language, so on and so forth. So I think there's something really interesting about that as well, which I feel can still carry him to a legitimate main event spot.
And he might be their last chance for a little while to have one of these guys who had their real organic, slow growth within New Japan.
That's a great thought.
Other than Zach, within this tournament, when I'm looking at these 20 wrestlers, anyone else is a launch pad. Whereas Zach is like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's the next. I hate to say next guy up, but it's sort of next guy up. Now, having a foreigner win the G1, that's a big deal. That's a really big deal. So that's
we've seen it before. We've seen it before.
We have, but that's the piece that gives me some pause. Okay. Right? Is Zack Sabre Jr. at the level of Kenny Omega? Right? Probably not. Could he be? Yeah, maybe. He's 36. I believe the first night of the G1 is his 36th birthday. Actually. Okay. So that's a fun fact. And I only see that because the math that my Excel document did says on day 1 of the G1 he will be 36.0. So
okay, so there you go.
So I guess that's what that means. I could be totally wrong. Always a chance that the Google machine got a birthday wrong. But either way, that he's around that age. He's got some time, and I think he's got plenty of miles left on him. So
sure.
he's a candidate, especially if they've got him locked up or if he's going to be around for a couple of years. He's a candidate to get to that level, and then honestly, make the jump. Do your thing, but have that run on top or near the top in New Japan. I think if I'm looking at A block, Zach is the most likely winner.
I agree. There's a couple of people you could make arguments for, but it's like, Naito is fine if he doesn't win. Shingo is Shingo. It's who he is. Kind
of impenetrable.
There's always.
Does he need it?
No, and there's always evil looming. There's always that can come and throw a glass of cold water on your celebration. But yeah, it's interesting.
Umino, right? Umino's the other name here that is going to eventually be a pushed entity.
Well, let's talk about it because I think there's something interesting. I wanted to bring that up because we've been talking a lot about the young guys and so on and so forth. And now when the G1 cards are revealed in order, right? Once that stuff happens, a lot of us sort of look to the numbers and start breaking down, who's main eventing and all of that, right?
Sure.
And Shota Umino has 0 main events throughout this G1, right? Naito has, just to give it an idea, Naito and Shingo and Yota Tsuji, they all have 4 main events each. David Finlay has 3. Takeshita has 2. Umera has 2. Even Ren Narita has 1. He's the only one of the Reiwa 3+1 that that doesn't have a main event. I think and he's a commodity. He's a guy that New Japan likes. That is very well liked in North America as well, right? I think the Moxley rub has been super beneficial for him here in North America.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I think it's interesting that out of the four, he's the guy who ends up. So I mean, it's not an exact science, but because let's not forget, these main events don't count the last two nights of block action, right? The last two nights of block action will be revealed at the very last minute,
and then the 2 nights of knockouts, So you've got really 4 events at the peak of the tournament that will need main eventers. But the other thing, Umino's hurt, so he is he is injured. He is hurt, so I do wonder if they built the cards around the potential that he would need to be replaced if they're not 100% positive that they don't want to restructure the whole night. So there may be something to that. I don't put a lot into that. I also don't put a ton into. J. Michael will probably have a better analysis of this, but I don't believe that there's much correlation between number of main events and success in the tournament.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, there are certain guys, Okada, Ibushi, when they were in it, right? Like, you knew that they were going to main event and have some success. But to my recollection, the main event list doesn't, and I'll do a full card construction thing soon. These just came out. I mean, to your credit, you snagged these very quickly.
Happened today as we're recording this. They would happen today.
I'll do a full card construction where I see who's in the semi-mains and the first match, etc. So, and I'll get that out there into the Twitter world too, and as well as the broadcast team, just to look at some of the broad scale card construction. So, I mean, of course, but the thing that is highlighted here is Yota Tsuji, and I think we can maybe move on and talk B Block a little bit. Yota Tsuji with 4 main events. I mean, that says they believe that this man is a draw. And they want him to run some longer matches. Oh, we got to talk about that just very briefly. Thank God we're not doing this 20-minute time limit thing that we did last year.
Yes.
That was, so a lot of people had issues with the 4 blocks or whatever. I was like, yeah, it's fine. It's more matches. I guess that's good, whatever. 20-minute time limit blew my mind last year. Hated everything about it. Hated that we then rolled right back around to Best of Super Juniors. The juniors still had 30 minutes, but the heavies couldn't have it. Yeah. Okay. But we got 30-minute time limits.
Sometimes you just need to break through the 20-minute time limit. Sometimes you just need that little extra something. I agree.
Yeah. So, but I think we're going to see Tsuji in some longer matches, push his average up. You know, we've got all those LIJ guys. I mean, clearly are carrying the tournament, right? You've got Naito, Shingo, and Tsuji. I mean, put someone in LIJ and all of a sudden they're over. It's amazing how that works. It used to be that way on the heel side with Bullet Club, and they've completely diluted that.
And now it's the complete opposite. I mean, just look at the Soul match, the LIJ versus LIJ trios match that they had. The crowd was going nuts for it. And it's
so fun, too.
Of course, they had local guys as well. Naito's from there. Bushi's from there. There's that element. But that was and the match was a blast on top of that. But we're digressing. We've opened up discussion about Yota Tsuji, so let's talk about B Block, which has on its roster Hiroki Goto, El Fantasmo, Jeff Cobb, Yota Tsuji, David Finlay, Henare, Ren Narita, Yuya Uemura, Konosuke Takeshita, and Bolton Oleg. It's maybe not as top heavy as A Block is, but I'll be damned if this is not going to be a heavy hitting block, Chris. This is going to be the to use an overused term, the slobber knocker block. Honestly, you got Cobb in here. You've got Cobb in here. Henare, Uemura. If Uemura, when he wants to start throwing those strikes,
he can go.
Never mind. Tsuji is just a huge guy, but you really feel like, and Takeshita, what are we talking about? Like, Takeshita is going to throw down with everyone. But you kind of feel like this block is kind of, I'm with you. It kind of feels like it's Tsuji's to win, isn't it?
It's there.
right?
I think he's at least through to the playoffs.
Oh, like I think he gets the bye. Like I think he gets.
He may, yeah. Let's not rule out Takeshita getting the bye.
Yeah, you think they do that? Do you think they do? They
go. If they're trying to protect a different match, and they don't want to go back to something, maybe. Also, I mean, the AEW guys always, the past 3 or 4 years, they've done really well. Even when it's guys like Lance Archer went through, and
sure,
they're at least factors. Takeshita is definitely that level, if not much, much higher. So, Yuji's up on the list for sure. I see Takeshita. I see Finlay. Finlay's a title holder, right?
Sure, yeah.
And the theoretical leader of the Bullet Club. Also new dad, so shout out David Finlay.
Oh, look at that. Didn't know
shout
that.
out David Finlay, new dog. Yeah. Pretty recently, just a couple weeks. That's why he wasn't on one of the tours.
Good for him.
So yeah.
Congratulations.
So he's the guy that I think will heat up throughout the tournament. So and Finlay was. I think Finlay was probably supposed to be in the New Japan Cup final. And I think I think he got hurt. Goto ended up in kind of going through that lane. So I do think Finlay was supposed to get sort of a little bit of a push there to really continue to establish that he's a player. Do I see Finlay in a G1 final right now with the vibes the way they are? No, but I do see him definitely going through to the playoffs. So I think my top 3 in this block would be Tsuji, Finlay, Takeshita, with a couple of wild cards, right? They love Cobb.
Sure.
Cobb always can be a factor in a G1, especially if you just want to build him up to eat one big loss later and set up his next TV title situation. So I think Cobb's a factor here. And you could always do a dead cat bounce with Hiroki Goto. Again, he had it in the New Japan Cup accidentally.
It worked in the cup. It got people
honestly,
really excited.
It was great. It was really good. So I'm okay with that too. But yeah, this one less top heavy. I feel like this is one of those ones that's gonna live. Everyone's gonna land in that 12 to 8, between 8 and 12 points. Like the floor is really high, the ceiling might be a little lower. It might be a mix, and we this is the block I have circled for tiebreaker city. Like I'm just gonna have to live in tiebreaker land on those last couple of nights to figure out who's on the bubble.
I'm with you.
So that's this block.
This might be the block with the wackadoo scenarios at the end where it's like, if this one loses and then this one,
we're like, Charlton is texting me and saying like, "Hey, is this right?" I'd corroborate that. Sure, let's go with it.
We're there with our cork boards, pinning things.
I mean, honestly,
yarn.
we are. I mean, I feel like election night in America sometimes, where I'm like, okay, if this guy does this and then this guy does that, and then the Electoral College shows up, and then all of a sudden we've got Tsuji going through.
Only more fun. It's like election night, only more fun.
Only less depressing.
I feel like this is the earn your spot block, if that makes sense. I think one of the things that also resonates with this G1 is I feel like there's a lot of guys who are being thrown in here and it's like, okay, well, you've got to earn your spot, work for your spot. We've got rid of the people who were just by default thrown in. Yep. So I think a lot of guys, and this is what I'm excited about, like a guy, even though a guy like Callum Newman's going to take all the L's, these are guys that are going to have something to prove, right? They're going to have to the audience, to the president, to the new IWGP booking committee.
The new IWGP committee?
Yeah, which is all very...
I have so many theories about that, but this is probably not the time or place, but I think they're trying to tell us something with that. They're really trying to drill in this like new era thing.
I think so too. So I'm excited to see who's going to come out of this, right? And in this concept, in this idea of work to earn your spot, I kind of feel David Finlay is a guy that I'm going to have a spotlight on for that specifically.
Yeah.
I think there was. Okay, I'm going to speak for myself as opposed to try to do these sweeping statements. When he became leader of Bullet Club, changed his look, changed his attitude, punked out Jay White, all this stuff, I was like, okay, I'm interested. Like, I'm super, super interested. Here's a guy that, has always flown below the radar. They're handing him on a silver platter, like a big spot in the company, leader of Bullet Club, so on. And he's quickly pushed to the level of saying, hey, we want this guy to be a top guy. But I think there's, at least on my end, and I feel there's a bit of a consensus that his work has always been fine, but nothing that you expect out of a top guy in New Japan Pro Wrestling, right? Yes. If that makes sense. I don't want to give the impression that I'm burying him, because I'm not. He's a good pro wrestler. But, when you get to that spot, when you get to wanting to be considered one of these top guys, well, there's a level of work that needs to be there as well. And we've seen it a couple of times. We saw it in the G1 again last year, his match with Ospreay, then against Will Ospreay, right? It's like,
sure.
Where you're like, well, of course, it's Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay could have a 4-star match with me, kind of thing. So I still haven't seen the thing that makes me a true to form Dave Finlay believer. But I'm still rooting for him. And I'm rooting for him probably twice as hard in this tournament because I want to see him earn that spot, the spot in my heart, and the spot on the roster that he's clearly designed for, or is meant for him, as opposed to, oh, here's the third guy we're throwing into the U.S. title match, and everyone groans, because it's David Finlay. What are we doing, kind of thing.
Or the guy that you feed to Nick Nemeth, which not the decision I would have made if I'm trying to get David Finlay over.
No. So there's a lot of things there are elements that are working against him, but I also think he can do a lot to temper those pre-existent feelings. I'm not giving up on Dave Finlay. I'm not ready to give up on Dave Finlay yet. And I think this is the tournament to do it.
I don't know if Dave Finlay is ever going to be Finn Balor, whatever, Prince Devitt, Kenny Omega, Jay White. Like, it's never going to be like, and obviously Dave Finlay, right? Like, but as a collective, the War Dogs, David Finlay's Bullet Club, are a good act.
I like
really
it.
Good act. Yeah.
I know a lot of people can't stand them, but I like them. I love Gay
They have
Kid.
They have a clear vision and a clear attitude. It is different. It is not your old school shenanigans based Bullet Club. It's very, I'm going to beat the hell out of you Bullet Club. And Finlay is a champion coming into, he's the white belt champion coming into this tournament. So he's going to have his moments. But I'm looking at this B block list right now, and like, I don't see anyone who I consider what I call an incumbent, right? Someone, a mainstay for a long time to come in this tournament. Any one of these guys could be out of this tournament next year.
Yep, absolutely.
All of them. None of them could be in the tournament next year. I mean, that wouldn't really surprise. Like, none of these guys really, scream to me. Maybe Suji. But that's a little bit different with him being as kind of fresh and young and new as he is. No one on this list is the next any of those guys who just left the tournament. The next Tanahashi, the next Ishii, the next, right? And you still got a lot of that still in A block with Zack and Evil and Sonata and Naito and Shingo. You got half that block is really what I consider like incumbent. You can pencil them in for the next 3 or 4 tournaments.
And that's exciting, right? That's exciting.
It is.
It's exciting.
Yeah, and that to me means all these guys have not only something kayfabe to wrestle for, because they're still earning their spot in next year's tournament. No matter how well you do, if you finish over 500, you've got a pretty good shot that you're penciled in next year's tournament, assuming you're still in the company. But also in the eyes of fans and the eyes of kind of quote unquote performance, right? Star rating style. These guys are all in that lane where they're still, save for maybe Goto, but but he's got some pride. Let me tell you, he's
pro-
he's still in this tournament because he's a prideful man, and that's awesome. I'm here for
Sure.
it. So I think this block, maybe, I think people look at it and they say, I don't know about B block, right? And I think that's the surprise block. I think we're gonna see. There's not much. Even Narita, when he's House of Torturing, it's not quite the level of like Evil doing the House of Torture stuff. He still does show up and wrestle some stuff. So there's no night off in this block
really
at all,
isn't.
and not, neither block really, but a lot of proving to be done with the B block, which I think is going to be so fun. And Oleg Bolton being in the tournament, I don't know if he's going to lose a bunch. I mean, he's only lost a couple of singles matches, even in his Young Lion career, and one of them was a replacement match where he stepped in for a TV title defense against Zack Sabre Jr. So you almost throw it out. So like in the sense of his planned push and what his career looks like, his trajectory is so strong that I don't know. You say Callum Newman probably going to eat, however many losses, and that's going to be his story of the tournament. Oleg could go to the playoffs for all I know. I have no idea. Well, he's such an interesting case.
The president really likes him, I believe.
Totally.
It's kind of hard.
That seems clear. Yeah.
It's kind of hard to dismiss.
The president really likes him, and Yuji Nagata recruited him.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
So if we can get this man a singlet and a new theme song, he could pull some wins.
I think so too. I don't think he's necessarily slotted in here to be the pin eater. This is going to be a very interesting block. When's it going to be El Fantasmo's year?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, he's such a lost soul in the story of New Japan, where he's had this rise and then kind of, left Bullet Club and fell into the God
whatever happened
vortex.
There. Yeah. That's a good one. I like that.
Where all of his friends now have left, right? And I do think that's his story now. He's all out of friends. The Tamatonga, Tangaloa's gone. Hikuleo's on his way to Florida or wherever he's meeting up with the new traveling troupe. So he's in Hantai, which is kind of a loosely associated group of people that are just not in other groups.
Right.
So he's flying solo. So that's an interesting lane. I know another one of those guys a lot of people may not know. He lives in Japan. He really enjoys his time in New Japan. He's very prideful about being a part of the New Japan roster, and I think that's a big piece to why it works for him to be a part of Hantai. But we need to see what this version of ELP, the kind of lone wolf version of ELP, kind of is. He's a factor. I think he could absolutely be a factor, at least on that last night of the block, to earn himself kind of his next storyline, because he no longer has a tag team partner to jump off of. Literally.
or like you said, any friends at all. I'm kind of excited for him to dump the aw shucks stuff. Sure. Not get rid of the babyface aspect, because you get the vibe, at least watching from all the way over here, that Japanese crowds are really into him.
They love him.
And he literally kisses babies coming to the ring. So, he's working hard on that aspect. I'm not necessarily saying he's got to go harsh suddenly, and be, suddenly he's Stone Cold Steve Austin. That's not it. But I think there's a bit of his persona that needs to be less, I guess, the world is out to get me. And, and sort of like, okay, it's time to get my hands dirty. Let's go, because we have been down the I'm so sad I don't have friends route. That's what happened when he got kicked out of Bullet Club. And then the Tongans sort of came over and they're like, hey, buddy.
Like, hey, we were in Bullet Club too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I was kind of disappointed that that's where his path led him. It was so obvious, but it was also felt like such the easy route for everyone. It was like, well, there's another guy that kicked out of Bullet Club. Oh, okay. He could go hang out with the other guys. It's like, it doesn't have to be that way. So but he kind of sticks out like a sore thumb here, where he is one of those guys who's been around a bit, never really had a shot at the tippy top, had a good run as a junior, a little bit of work in the tag world. He's got all the potential in the world.
Yeah, he's got charisma. He's got skill. Yep. Like, he's a good worker.
Fan base.
He's got the fan base.
He's super dedicated to what they do there. I mean, he is without a doubt a guy that if they strapped even just the smallest battle rocket to him, he could probably get, he could get a lot of people behind him. And I do hope he's a factor, or that it's clear that he's found a lane for himself, either with a win over Hanare for maybe a never title shot, or a win over Cobb for maybe the a TV title shot. He'd be really fun as a traveling television title holder.
Absolutely.
As he starts to work out where he wants to land. And I do know that they're trying to establish Hantai as like a force. They want people to be, and that's where I think we're seeing the Bolton push come from a little bit. He's going to be one of those guys that lives on this New Japan, lion mark. But I think ELP could absolutely be a part of that too. They need to give him the chance and the shine to do it.
I agree. Do we, so who do we have moving forward? I know I kind of spoiled the broth by, going out there and saying, I think Zack Sabre Jr. is winning, but
sure.
What kind of path do we see heading towards at the very least the finals? Look, I know you're a numbers guy. I know you don't want to commit because you're not ready. You didn't pull out your scientific calculator. Ready. You don't have your pocket calculator out, and all that stuff.
I do not.
So we don't have necessarily to commit to who we think. I did, but you don't have to. You're the guest anyway. Yeah. I'm not putting any undue pressure on you, Chris.
I'll change. I've probably got 3 or 4 podcasts over the course of the next couple of weeks. I will probably pick someone different on every show, just based on whoever I'm talking to. I'm like, yeah, Zach, that sounds good. Let's do Zach.
And you go with Damon, and Damon's like, yeah, Gabe Kidd. Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. Put him over. He did that LA TV spot. Yeah, for sure. Just like throwing random facts around. B Block is the weird one. B Block's the one where I'm like, who goes through?
Yeah.
A lot of people are going to circle Yota Tsuji, right? Yota Tsuji is not winning I think it's very unlikely that Yota Tsuji is winning the New Japan Cup and then winning the G1. It's never been done.
Right. It's a little weird.
But if you really want to put someone out there, he's a candidate for it.
Sure.
But I think he's a factor. I think coming out of the B block, I think the factors are Finley, Takeshita, and probably Tsuji, unless Uemura is coming out with a fire. But I feel like there's got to be a surprise in there somewhere. One of these younger guys that hasn't ever done anything, say maybe Uemura, he's never been in the tournament. He was actually not in the tournament last year. Of the 3+1, he is the +1. But he's had a weird story too. He hasn't really taken off. So I think the B block's going to establish someone. So the third slot for me coming out of B block is really a wild card, and I wouldn't be surprised if Takeshita goes to the final. That's
very interesting.
I think back to like 2003 when they pushed Akiyama through, and the whole vibe was New Japan versus All Japan, or versus where was Akiyama? Was he Noah yet? I don't know. Either way, it was this whole thing where it really banded New Japan together against the outsider for our tournament, right? And Takeshita's totally got that Akiyama kind of vibe about him.
Sure.
Where people believe he's a big time winner. He's been in multiple companies, been successful, and the heat on that final could be humongous. But then the A block's got to send through a big old baby face to defend the honor of New Japan, and that I think would probably be like a Shota Umino. Or you just go full babyface Zach.
Or you could go full babyface Zach. Look, it's funny because I feel like A block, the possibilities are much clearer than B block, like you said. I think B block is going to be the big question mark. It's going to be the one that we're all scratching our heads and to the very last minute. I think David Finlay is going to be a factor. If I'd even go as far as to say he'd win the block and get the bye, but not necessarily make it to the finals, right?
Sure. Because he's holding a title.
Right. And it's Dave Finlay.
Which also usually means you're going to get bounced. Probably in the knockouts, though, because then it's very clear who's coming after that title.
That's a very good point, too. He might just go... We might just do that. We go to the knockouts, and then he loses to... Your guess is as good as mine.
I mean, honestly, it could be Takeshita, because the whole theory behind Finlay's title is that it's the global champion. He's supposed to go other places with that. That's the theory, and I think Tanahashi mentioned they wanted to define what these titles mean, which could mean Finlay goes to DDT and defends against Takeshita, or goes to AEW and defends against Takeshita, right? Like, sure. That's an interesting wrinkle, which I would love. And but I just don't know. It's a tough tournament to call, because they have changed the mindset of how we are thinking about the results in New Japan, specifically with this play-in tournament where they push through these young guys, both young guys. I thought maybe one, right? I was like, one of them's going through, and then like Taichi or Yoshihashi is going to come through on the other side. Big, underdog thing. They'll have a run through the tournament. Nope, both young guys knocked them all out. No messing around. Done deal. Like, and that's the other. I think Bolton he's an interesting guy where, like, you could say none of these guys have really wrestled Bolton, and they can't figure him out, and he's such a different entity. And maybe he goes on a big Jeff Cobb like run where he wins 8 or 9, 7 or 8 in a row, and then eats a big loss, but then goes through the playoffs and eats another big loss, right, and gives it back. So this block is so fascinating. I think it's going to live in the middle, and then eventually, right at the end, some 3 guys are going to eke their way through.
I can't help but think that, like, the easy way is just to, push Yota Tsuji, right?
Absolutely.
You push him, and you have a match with you have a final with Zack Sabre Jr. and he loses, right? Which corroborates the idea of Tsuji having won the New Japan Cup but not winning the G1 as well. But then the discourse will be they're not pushing the young guys.
But I guess if you really wanted, I shouldn't rule that out, because every big star in New Japan history has a thing, right? Okada had the big, the longest reign, the most defenses.
Right.
Naito's had the Tokyo Dome, like, Right.
Maybe
Ibushi had a bunch of G1 wins in a row.
Sure.
And, if they really want to get behind one of these young guys, and they want to go behind the one who's got, a spark already lit, that's a thing that you can give to Tsuji. The first person to ever win both those tournaments in the same year.
And look, I wouldn't be surprised. Look, what did they do when they brought him back from Excursion?
Right. They threw him right into a main event at Dominion. I mean, it's crazy. So
not Sakura Genesis, not
no, we're
not
talking
Power Struggle.
Yeah, show 1B of the year. I mean, like the summer's, the summer big one. So B Block is fascinating. I'm gonna have a tough time ever making a call on B Block. A Block, I think I'm with you. I think it's Zach. If I'm purely looking at this from I'm a fan perspective, without considering the politics or the nationality of the winners and things like that. I think Zach I'm rooting for Zach.
Yeah, so am I.
I'm rooting for Zach, or something special, right? Something special being someone who's surprising, right? Someone who's very surprising, going through and winning the damn tournament. And that could be one of the outsiders, and it could be one of the guys that we're not really expecting right now. So, and I think that type of person seems to all be in the B Block, which I think is why I'm going to be watching some of those cards where they really find, just taking a look at, like, who's getting time and who's getting featured and who's getting big wins. Like,
right.
I'm sure that the semifinal matches, the matches that will eventually be at least in the knockout rounds, are usually pretty buried in the block match time, right? It's one of those matches where you're like, this is kind of a big match. Why isn't this the main event? And then, like, it ends quick or some sort of banana peel thing, and you're like, that's weird. And you go about your day, and then you come back, right around knockout stage, you're like, oh, they're doing it again. Got it.
Yeah,
They do it in
exactly.
some far out land, and they do it like, third from the top, and it's a much shorter match than you think it's going to be, and you're like, oh, they left something on the table there, and then it all comes back. So that's my like inside track of like things to be mindful of. Big matches that you think should be higher on the card, they will be later in the tournament. Don't worry.
There you go. So, look, we're B block. I'm with you. It's going to be, like you said, we'll be watching it with granular detail. We'll be really paying attention to this one because it's a fascinating one. And you made a good case for Takeshita maybe making it all the way as well. It's not something I hate, and
never rule out the power of All Elite Wrestling when you're booking into another promotion.
Right.
Like you can't,
no.
Right? But he's also native, right, to Japan, also a DDT guy. There's so much working for Takeshita, and he's awesome. He's awesome. And if New Japan's trying to do some recruiting for whenever he wants to move back to Japan, put him in some spots.
Might be, well, I don't want to say that.
Who knows?
He apparently he's not super thrilled these days with how things are going.
Oh, is that right? I haven't heard that.
No, apparently he's not. There's, just very faint dark web rumors going around that. Mm-hmm. Apparently he's not super into what's happening in AEW right now. So you roll out the red carpet. You're inviting him over. You roll out the red carpet. You say, hey, do you want a little apple cider with this sir?
Listen. I always say you can walk either direction on a red carpet.
That's true. That is very true.
So,
there you go.
Yeah.
Chris, this was a blast. I'm so glad that we had a chance to talk about the Climax 34. I'm like, we're both obviously very excited about it this year. There's a lot of potential in this. And on top of the matches and the new people in here, I feel like we might even be looking at a new way of booking things, of how New Japan approaches things moving forward. So that's also really exciting, and I'm glad we got to pick your brain on that level and share your thoughts. Thank you very much for being here. Why don't, before we leave, you let everyone know one last time where to find you on the internet, not in your hometown. We don't want people showing up.
Please don't. No need for that.
Don't do that.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at the Chris Samsa. You can find my work at sportofprowrestling.com. If you want to enter the G1 Climax, we're calling it the unofficial G1 Climax pick'em pool. It's close to official, right? Like, sort of work there.
Okay.
It's very close. It's on the cusp of official. But it's very clearly stated, the unofficial G1 Climax 34 pick'em pool. You will be able to find that at g1.sportofprowrestling.com. It is fantastic. My pal Jeremy really did some heavy legwork to put together a really nice user experience for people. We're not talking about a Google sheet here, okay? We did some serious work. You've got stats and info drop downs on every match that you end up picking. You've got a live block updating to the right as you pick the tournament. I just have fun clicking through it and messing around with it. So I hope others find the same joy. We're working on prizes too, so there will be something at stake. If nothing else, a Twitter shout out that might get a couple of likes. But yeah, that's kind of the big thing right now. G1.sportofprowrestling.com. You'll be able to enter your bracket and enter a challenge. We're hopeful to get, we had 300 people sign up for the New Japan Cup contest. We're hoping for double-ish that. For a G1 that has quite a bit more buzz than a New Japan Cup. So yeah, but thank you so much. I'm glad we finally got we've chatted in many places otherwise, but it's nice to, sit down and have a chat with you I'm at my standing desk. I have to say that specifically because I have a standing desk, so I have to tell everyone all about it.
So do I. Is it with a lever, or do you have a pneumatic lift?
I believe this would be a pneumatic lift.
Oh my! Well, look at us.
Yeah. Well, I got kicked out of my office because there's a child living in there now, so now I had to get myself a different desk. But blessing of a lifetime. But yeah, thank you for having me and for helping me kick off my G1 season here. So I always love the first time I get to talk G1, and hopefully by the end of the next couple of weeks, I'm not exhausted by it. But you have helped me formulate many of my thoughts that I will carry through as the thread of my time.
Everyone else you join benefits because of me. That's what what we have to learn here. You tell that to Joel and Damon. You tell them that.
Yeah. Yes. You tell them. If you can get them to talk about wrestling, you tell them that.
Pretty much. Thanks so much, Chris. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words, but thank you so much for taking time to join me and talk about it. Like, this is going to be a great kickoff, and I'm very excited. Be sure to not forget to join the Pick'em once it's released. G1.sportofprowrestling.net. .com. I don't know why. I knew that. I know
we're big boys. We got the .com.
I don't know why I knew this. And of course, folks, don't forget my own daily G1 coverage is going to be starting on July 20th. And we're going to be breaking down every day of action right here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes or on your favorite podcast application. But until then, thank you again, Chris Samsa. Thank you, everyone, for listening/watching. And I'll see you next time.